Hi, welcome back to Photographing and Communicating with Fairies. In this lesson, we're going to cover what you need for dowsing. And there are only 4 things. You need a pendulum board, a flat surface, and pen and paper. And I'll cover each of these things right now. So for a pendulum, you don't have to rush out and buy something just to be able to dowse. If you have a key, you can put it on a string, let's say a skeleton key, just to be elaborate. You can put it on a piece of string. If you have a favorite necklace, you can use that favorite necklace. The main thing you want to remember is that whatever you use as a pendulum, you don't want it to be too heavy and you don't want it to be too light. So in other words, you wouldn't put a needle, as is the old wives' tale, put a needle on a string for determining the sex of a baby. That is an old common thing to do as, say, a midwife years and years back. So that would be too light for this kind of dowsing. You also don't want to have a heavy necklace or a really heavy key, because you have to remember you will be holding this pendulum up for a while. It's good practice to hold it above the board and not rest your elbow on the table, simply because that interrupts the flow of energy, and when you're first starting, that's the last thing you want to do. This is my pendulum, and as you can see, it's small, and in fact, I'll hold it up here next to one of the flash drives that I talked about you getting. As you can see, it's really not that big. If I hold it up, next to my thumb, it's a pretty small pendulum, but it has beautiful weight to it. You also want to make sure, if you purchase one, that the chain is a decent chain. Some of the chains that are attached to the pendulums, even though the pendulum itself is beautiful shape, beautiful weight, a lot of times they don't take into consideration the chain itself. I like this chain. It is kind of like a jeweler's chain, and I don't know if I can get it up there close enough. Anyway, it's fine, and very small spaces in between the chain links. I have never had this particular chain tangle on me. And some of the pendulums that I have purchased online, they will have chains, but when I pull them out of the bag, the chains are all tangled up and mangled, and the links sit funny or something along those lines. And if the links are sitting funny, there's a little kink in your chain, the dowsing just doesn't feel quite like it should. And when you get accustomed to dowsing, you will be able to tell the energy that comes up through this chain into your fingers. You can feel that. But when there's a kink in the chain or there's a knot in the chain, it really does work differently. So if you plan on purchasing one, it would probably be better for you to go to a local metaphysical store. If you buy one online because you don't have a local metaphysical store, then I would suggest asking some questions about the chain. As I said, some pendulums are very expensive, and you get them and they end up, the chain is worthless, or, they're very cheap and the stone is wonderful, but the chain, again, kind of sucks. So you really have to pay attention to the chain portion. That's a huge part of purchasing a pendulum. The next thing you need is a pendulum board, and I've showed you this before with the date on the back. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, and I have actually attached a file for you with a picture of this board that you can print off. It's the same board that I've used since the very beginning, and you can print it off and you can put it on a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood, something that's a little bit more sturdy than a piece of paper if you plan to dowse a lot with the fairies from your photos. The boards that I found in Walmart, I think they were like 79 cents at the time. I'm not even sure if they still have them, but you can always check that out. Of course, they probably won't be 79 cents anymore, but you can also maybe check Hobby Lobby. And as you can see, this board is not very thick. So it doesn't, but it's not breakable. I mean, I've had it for so long. So anyway, a pendulum board, and like I said, print off the one that I have given you. That'll give you a start, and you can do whatever it is that you want with it. And then eventually, if you'd like, you can wood burn on a piece of board like I have, or you can just draw it, paint it, color it, whatever you want, whatever works for you. There's no hard and fast rule of what it has to look like. It doesn't have to be wood burned like mine is. That just happens to be how it worked for me and what I was good at. So just get your pendulum board printed out and do what it is that you would like to do with it. The other thing that you need is a flat surface, and you do not need a special room like a meditation room or anything like that. If you have one, great, use it. But if not, I used to sit on the couch, and we had 3 cats and a dog, and I had 4 kids, and the kids would come home from school and have all kinds of things to share with me. I'd be right in the middle of a dowsing session. They'd talk to me while I would douse, and the cats would bat at my pendulum. And so you can do this anywhere. A kitchen table, a coffee table, anywhere. So just so long as you're on a flat surface. I used to actually balance mine on my knee when I'd be sitting on the couch, and then go ahead and douse that way. So, there is no rules to where you douse. You can douse outside as long as there's not a lot of wind. So go ahead and find yourself a flat surface. Now, as for the pen and paper, that's kind of common sense. I prefer to have a notebook simply because I like to keep track of my dowsing sessions, especially with the fairies, because they give so much information about themselves. And of course, with my YouTube channel, when I douse with Hasla, she gives me information for the next cartoon. So I have a notebook that I keep her dowsing messages in, so I can keep track of what information she has given me, even though I've created the cartoon. So just go page by page. You can write the date on it so that you know when you got the information from either your guide or your fairies. Put whatever information at the top of the page that you feel you'll need, and then just go from there. And having the spiral notebook is an absolute easy thing to do. They're pretty cheap, especially when school is starting again. We just kind of stock up on spiral notebooks at that point in time because they're usually about 17 cents a piece. So we get stacks of them so that we have them. We use a lot of spiral notebooks. And I say we, with my husband and I. We use a lot of spiral notebooks. So this is a short session here, but that is truly all you need for the dowsing process. So gather up these items because the next lesson is going to be training your pendulum. So at least have your pendulum and your pendulum board available for the next couple of lessons. So I will see you in the next one.